radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 129, recorded on Saturday, July 20th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we recap one hell of a week. But first, the headlines from the week. You get it? It's the thing. Like, we're talking about the week that happened.
I got along with him well, although he did announce the other day that he'd much rather see Biden as president. And I agree with him. I agree.
First up in headlines, in a story that seems like it happened 2 months ago.
It really did, man. Or it really does.
But of course happened the day after we recorded last week. There was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. At a rally in Pennsylvania. People might be even sick of this story by now, but I think because it kind of is getting forgotten, there's some things that are getting missed. And I found a recording, like there's audio.
Oh, wait, that's not where I thought you were going with the whole mist thing. I thought you were setting yourself up for a joke.
Well, look, there's audio that was released that's not, like, I know maybe everyone heard the original audio from the shooting, but someone else captured it as much closer, and you can really hear what's going on, so I wanted to play it because I think it's kind of interesting.
Listeners, I do not know what this is.
So let's hear what the assassination attempt really sounded like.
Bing, 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 bing.
Bing, bong. Let me get my shoes on.
Because we all know that's what guns sound like.
Oh, okay.
I was setting up a joke, actually.
I thought you were saying a second joke that was the whole missing thing. I was prepared for it mentally.
So yes, in case you missed it,
I get it.
and I want to go, I'm going to try something new. I wrote the headline as if this had happened to Joe Biden, and Fox News or Newsmax was reporting on it.
Got it.
Here we go.
Sounds good.
A 20-year-old Pennsylvania man was brutally killed by deep state Secret Service snipers while expressing his God-given Second Amendment rights on a rooftop near a Trump rally on Saturday. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
His God-given right to have an AR-15.
Right. I mean, that's Jesus's gun.
It is Jesus' gun. You're right. The most religious gun.
Right. Donald Trump Jr. has an AR-15 customized with a Christian Crusader like helmet on the stock, and on one of the magazines it's Hillary Clinton behind bars.
Oh my God, I just looked up the gun.
Yeah.
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
But it's the left that we're the ones that do the political violence.
Well, so let's talk about it. I'm ready. I've been gearing up to mentally prepare for this conversation.
Yeah, so we know actually very little when it comes to the would-be assassin's motives, despite the fact that Republicans, including Speaker Mike Johnson, and we'll talk about it, Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance, were both quick to blame extreme Democratic rhetoric for inciting political violence, which, as we just said, is the height of irony, considering that Donald Trump was in the middle of blaming immigrants for every problem in America when he was grazed in the ear by a bullet.
Yep.
The shooter, and again, we never say the name. A lot of times I think people do this for the notoriety it gives them, so we're not going to do that. The 50 people who listen to our podcast will have to look it up on their own if they don't already know. He was a registered Republican, but as is being widely reported, did donate $15 to a spam email from a progressive organization through Act Blue. But again, those things are designed to get you to click on them without knowing exactly what you're doing.
Right. And again, you can see, like, this is very Rorschach test-like with this whole thing. And all I can say is I'm kind of glad that at least he was registered as a Republican, not because it's this whole, like, oh, gotcha, Republicans, like, type of thing. But it's more of like, I can't imagine how much more this would be escalated if he was a registered Democrat.
Right. That's the only reason this isn't like
a big, huge
right,
thing.
like the largest star, like constantly going after every Democrat who ever says anything negative about Donald Trump.
Right. And I know that because the conspiracies throwing around how this guy's a secret Democrat and he hates Republicans with every fiber of his being and his whole family's full of Democrats.
There was even a fake page someone made saying that he was trans.
Right. And literally, this is all based on that one $15 donation 4 years ago, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he was 17.
To
3 years.
And again, as someone who does progressive campaigning and who knows about these different types of progressive organizations, this is one of the bad ones who literally just spam you for money, and then they eventually like send them out to eventually some candidates around the country. Mm-hmm. It's not even like the DNC or anything. This is just some random org that uses progressive ways to literally scam people out of money.
Yeah, Ryan Grimm, the reporter, showed a sample email that came out around that time from that organization, which was basically,
good job on that.
Do you think that Joe Biden should pardon Donald Trump? And then it didn't matter what you clicked on, it took you to the donation page.
Right.
So it could have been something like that. We don't know. Everyone he's ever known has been interviewed at this point.
Yeah.
According to his classmates, he was considered conservative during debate class. He always seemed to be on the conservative side of issues, sometimes even by himself in a much more liberal class, but he didn't seem to have strong political beliefs. His family had Trump signs in their yard. His dad apparently is a big MAGA guy, even though he's registered libertarian. He also did research the dates of the DNC as well as the RNC, looked up other political figures like Merrick Garland, FBI Director Christopher Wray, members of the royal family.
Yeah.
So it kind of seemed like he just wanted to
kill somebody.
Yeah, someone famous, again, to try to get attention. He had a homemade explosive device in his car, along with the detonator on him. There was a bulletproof vest and more ammunition in his car as well. Kind of the big story that has come out of this is how he ever got as close as he did to be able to take those shots. He's just a 20-year-old kid that
who bought a ladder.
Well, and apparently he didn't even use that ladder. At least the reporting that I saw, that he bought a ladder but was not used to get on this roof. People saw him.
Yes.
And not only on the roof already, but he was identified as suspicious by security almost 40 minutes before the shooting because he had a rangefinder with him and a duffel bag. So he was spotted pretty early on, and they were watching him. But somewhere along the line, something broke down. They lost sight of him. I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't at least confront him, ask to look what's in his bag, and see what happens from there. It could have been over at that point. And then he was even spotted by rally goers climbing on a roof, crawling, like bear crawling across the roof with a rifle, minutes before he actually was able to get in position. That is crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that there was some kind of communication breakdown, I know people were blaming the local police that were contracted out by the Secret Service for security. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't talk to each other. I know the stories coming out are saying that Trump's actual detail didn't know that any of this had happened. But that is a real concern, certainly. That, everyone has, I think, this very lionized vision of the Secret Service as being like this elite strike team force that, will be able to handle anything and take anybody out. But clearly in this case,
well, I think that's a good segue to also talk about the amount of conspiracy theorizing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because of this, again, incompetence, people don't want to just accept that. Yeah, there's
stuff
a lot
like this can happen.
People make a lot of mistakes. Everyone is just a human being at the end of the day, and incompetence is the reason for a lot of things breaking down everywhere.
Well, we literally
as an IT person, I can say
right.
over the last
how was CrowdStrike?
Yeah, great.
But we literally have a political show where all we do is talk about how something that most Americans don't understand how it works produces such stupid results. And like, well, how could they do that? I'm like, because it's more incompetence than you could ever imagine. And that's what I've learned personally and just throughout life. Usually incompetence is the reason for a lot of things going wrong. A lot less people know what's going on than you think is actually happening.
Right.
And that's where, and I would even include like myself included in that, where I have my own jobs to do and stuff like that. But like a lot of people are just doing the best they can, and a lot of things fall through the cracks all the time, and it sucks.
Yeah. There's conspiracy theories on both sides.
Right. And I'm specifically talking about the ones on the left.
Yeah, the Blue Anon, as has been coined, conspiracy theorists that, oh, this is all just the setup by Trump because he comes out of this looking better than before.
Right, which is the dumbest freaking take.
Right, yeah, he's going to let someone take an actual shot at his head.
Right. And still kill somebody in the process.
Yeah, and seriously injure 2 others. Not that I think Donald Trump really cares about anyone else other than himself, but he does care so much about himself that there's no way
Right.
that he would agree to this. Especially, like, literally missed him by an inch, and he had just turned his head, like a half a second before the shot was fired.
Well, have you seen the other rhetoric on the conversations and discourse on the Republican side where they are, well, of course, we can talk about this as well. They're thanking God and now calling it a miracle.
Right. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally says she saw an angel draped in the American flag come down and save Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, it was like the way she talked about it was she said something about how like there was the flag that was above him that you can all clearly see in the pictures. And she was like, at one point beforehand, it got tangled up in the wind and it looks like an angel. And literally it's just like knotted up in the wind. I'm like, what are you talking? But that's like how these people think. And it's not just, and we'll talk about this in the RNC segment.
And this is very much screw the people that did get shot. The firefighter who got killed trying to shield his family.
Right. And it's very scary to hear this much like faithful devotion to this type of rhetoric. I mean,
it's like the tornado that goes through the town kills a dozen people, but it spared the church
stays alive. Yeah.
So
the house
God
burns down and
protected.
the Bible is unscathed somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, the family's dead, but their Bible survived.
Yeah, but I think what's a little bit different with this one, I guess you can call it more cult-like, but the idea of having...
Oh, it does. It definitely reinforces if you were in the Trump cult.
Like, this is it.
Yeah. And this is what the thing that where I had, again, the same feeling I had after the debate, where it was just like a knot in my stomach for days on end after that.
Yeah, me too.
This was the same way.
Yep, 100%.
Of
me
like,
too.
oh, this is it. No one has a chance now. Before I was like, well, as long as we get Biden out of there and get somebody else in, Kamala Harris, anyone who can talk coherently, I think they can beat Donald Trump. But after this, I was like, oh my God, no, not anymore. Well, not after those images. But luckily, it doesn't seem to have moved the polls.
Right. And that's what I was going to say too. I'm like, man, Jason, we don't believe in God, but something's happening with Donald Trump because he is the luckiest person
yes
I've ever seen in my entire life. And he is like, I mean, he's the perfect example of why God doesn't exist, right? Like he's the worst
the devil
human possible. Right. He's the worst human possible, but nothing can happen to him. There is no ever consequences or justice or karma. It literally, like you said, misses an assassination attempt on one of the worst lapses of security of all time and comes out inches away just fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. We talked about the religious aspect of the coincidences. There's other stuff talking about in Wisconsin Republican circles thanking Ron Johnson for this. Did you hear this?
Because he made the
chart that he was looking at. And I'm not kidding. The tweets are out there where there are Republicans in Wisconsin right now that are saying we were one Mandela Barnes victory away from Trump getting assassinated. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Like no other Republican. And the fact that it came from Ron Johnson, senator of Wisconsin, talking about all these terrible immigrants flooding into our country. Which, again, if you're in Wisconsin, immigrants are the backbone of our dairy industry.
Yep.
So, yeah, thanks, Ron Johnson. So what do you think would have been the outcome if Ron Johnson had not made that chart?
if Jesus himself didn't move that bull with a gust of wind.
And the assassination attempt had been successful, Donald Trump killed at a rally in Pennsylvania. A lot of people are saying it would have been violence in the streets, pandemonium. What do you think?
I actually don't know. I'm going to go with probably not the pandemonium that people think or that we're dreading over. And I say that as someone who also has anxiety over that exact same fear. I think until the information came out, there have been way more conspiracies about who the shooter was. Was he a deep state operative? The whole thing.
Manchurian candidate. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think that would have been way, way worse. But I don't know. There's a part of me that's conflicted where it's just, I mean, who knows? I kind of think back to even almost like The Boys. I hate to go all the way back to the last episode when we were talking about it. But it's like, yeah, there's no objective reality. It doesn't matter. They can spin this however they want, and mobs will just ignite on a whim. So who knows what would have happened? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, one, I think after frantically checking the news in the grocery store parking lot, I would have gone back in the store and gotten a couple bottles of champagne. So that's first. That would have been different. But I'm going to be in the minority here and say I think we've been better off. Dead Donald Trump. I mean, that's not the end of Republican fascism, but it certainly stops the threat for this election cycle. I mean, who are they going to replace him with? J.D. Vance now? Yeah, good luck with that.
Right.
So I do think, again, not advocating for political violence, except for, as I've said many times, supernatural political violence is entirely justified and approved. Any kind of spell or potion or hex or doll voodoo or otherwise that you want to use to try to inflict harm upon your political opponents, my ringing endorsement for that, go for it. But other than that, I'm not advocating anyone to go out and throw your life away, because that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah.
Is a 20-year-old kid basically was trying to
who needed help. Let's also
Yeah.
be weird. He needed help.
Yeah, he did look up depression and depression disorders apparently on his phone before this. He was willing to exchange his life for someone famous. And let me tell you, everybody, your life, I don't care who you are, is worth more than Donald Trump's life.
Yes.
So that is not a good trade. It's not worth it.
And can we finish this off by talking about the hand waving away of gun violence, even when it's used on their own?
Well, they were
presidential
chanting
candidate?
USA, USA, USA.
Right.
After it was clear that Trump was okay.
Right. But even then, you have at the RNC, again, we can talk about it later, but at the RNC, guns, 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 guns.
Right.
J.D. Vance talked about all the guns his family had. Guns everywhere. Guns everywhere.
But they're not allowed,
This
of
is
course,
right.
at the
This is
actual RNC.
another disaffected white guy, young white man, with an AR-15 who was ready to cause damage. It is a pattern, and it happens over and over again. And I've seen a lot of people correctly call out the idea where it's like you have Republicans who are more angry about this, but then do not give a rip about what happens when third graders get shot in
Right.
their own classrooms.
Everyone was calling it a dark day in America
Right.
when Trump survived an assassination attempt.
Right. And
It was maybe a dark day that it missed, but
And it disgusted me that I saw people with their first reactions were to defend against the people saying, hey, so you're going to care about the next school shooting, right? And they're like, how dare you bring this up right now? This was a bad.
Always.
I'm like, screw you. I'm so done with this.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest issue here is why is it so easy for every potentially depressed
20-year-old
to just get an assault rifle?
and just went to the store and bought 50 rounds.
Yep.
Cool. Sounds great.
With a presidential rally or the presidential candidate rally coming up in that area. Yeah, that's fine. It's not any alarm bells going off there.
Right. And I do not feel apologetic for saying this. Republicans caused this to happen.
Oh, certainly. Under a full Democratic administration, that rifle would still be illegal.
And even if he was able to get that rifle, he would not be able to get the rounds for it.
And the fact that Republicans are trying to blame Democrats
Is laughable.
Yes, it is ridiculous. Like every single Republican running for office has to have them with an AR-15 in their ad shooting something. They all send out Christmas cards with their whole family, 2-year-old with his little mini AR-15. It has become their mascot. The AR-15 is the mascot of the Republican Party.
Yep.
So yes, sometimes you reap what you sow. And you might even say that political violence coming to the very people that had the power to do anything to control firearms in this country and did not do anything is maybe karma rather than a dark day in our country's history.
Yep.
And I do not apologize, and we are not going to break up the band like that coward Jack Black.
Shut up. I got Nintendo money coming in. Don't you screw this for me.
I had to do Kung Fu Panda 8. You're ruining my career, man. Yeah, ridiculous.
In more chaos from the week, it's not the RNC.
Literally in the fallout of this failed assassination attempt.
This actually makes me really angry that the assassination attempt happened right as this happened as well, because this should get more attention. Florida judge Eileen Cannon has dismissed the classified documents case against Donald Trump. That's correct. In an unprecedented move, Judge Cannon has officially dismissed Trump's classified documents case, and democracy and justice be damned.
And maybe the only justice is a bullet to the head after all.
Oh, my God. So what happened? Well, I want to clarify one thing very quick for those who have not followed this case. Cannon did not dismiss the merits of this case. What she argued for was that the Attorney General did not have the authority to appoint Jack Smith to investigate the case to begin with, and violated the Constitution. And as many of you who probably have not been following the case and just reacted like I did, saying, what? Yeah, I'm right there with you. But let's talk about what she based it on. Hell, if anyone knows, no one has any clue what she's basing on other than her own BS agenda. This decision flat out conflicts with multiple appellate court rulings on this exact same constitutional verse, and an extremely cut and dry SCOTUS ruling that also goes completely against what she said in her own reports.
And she basically argued that only Congress has the authority to appoint a special prosecutor and give them the authority of a federal prosecutor, not the Attorney General, even though this has been done
Before.
many, many times.
I mean,
previously for a long time.
Even just recently, several ones that we could think of. Robert Mueller, Robert Hur, the Durham guy from the Durham report thing.
The Hunter Biden investigation.
So it's not only been done before, it's common practice.
And has been challenged in court and upheld many times as well, until now for some reason.
Right. So what she actually based this on, though, was Clarence Thomas's concurrence in the recent Trump immunity case. Keep in mind, no one else signed on to this opinion. This is Clarence Thomas going rogue on his own thing, and it was criticized at the time for trying to set up a roadmap to exonerate Trump in future cases, like the classified documents case.
It was literally a message from Clarence Thomas to Eileen Cannon
saying, hey, you should do this.
Right, and she did. Two of the worst judges in American history writing love letters to each other in their rulings.
I think you said that incorrectly. It is Justice Thomas and then Judge Cannon. And then, sorry, I meant to say future Justice Cannon.
That would be appropriate, right? Trump wins re-election.
Just put Cannon in there. Who cares at this point?
And you know that Thomas and Alito are going to retire. And yeah, Eileen Cannon.
No, Trump's just going to order the assassination of some of the court.
Well, yeah.
He has immunity now.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore.
Nope.
The DOJ has instructed Jack Smith to appeal, which he will likely overturn the decision because, like I said, it's very black and white. It also means there is a small chance that Jack Smith may be able to ask the appellate court to remove Cannon from the case due to either incompetence or bias.
And that's the take that I saw immediately following this decision from a lot of people.
It's like, this is the chance. Here we go. It's unlikely to happen because it's such a high threshold and a high bar. And while we believe, obviously that's probably the case, to find definitive evidence that Cannon was just not a bad judge that disagreed with the decision versus intentional bias toward Trump doesn't work. It's just very unlikely to happen. And on top of that, the fact that Trump appointed Cannon is not considered evidence. So that's already out the window too. But what's weird about this is that Judge Cannon didn't even have to do this. Thanks to her other BS tactics we talked about before, she already intentionally delayed the trial past the 2024 election, which was the point of dismissing it now for this.
Right.
But she just put herself at risk and then put herself back into the spotlight for God knows what reason.
Well, I think they correctly assumed that the assassination news was much bigger and would overshadow this.
Ugh.
And also, if you're a conservative lauding this decision, just know Hunter Biden has already made an appeal to dismiss his case based on this ruling.
Yep. And guess what? Unlike the hypocritical Republicans, we are more than happy seeing Hunter Biden go to jail.
Bury him under the jail, maybe with his dad.
Because, what?
The corrupt Biden crime family.
Because we're actually honest. And we care about having things mean what they're supposed to mean.
Pretty sure Joe told him to buy that gun.
Jesus Christ.
And to not pay his taxes.
and that China would pay for it. Next up in RFK Jr. news. Do you know he's still polling around 8%?
Yeah, that makes sense. People know the name Kennedy, Joe.
I hate this. I hate this so much.
So a partial phone call was released by RFK III, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s son, on Twitter, which has since been deleted, but it appears to show Donald Trump talking to Robert Kennedy on the phone and buttering him up with a bunch of anti-vax nonsense in exchange for some sort of favor. But we'll listen to it and then we'll talk about it.
Doses, small doses. When you feed a baby, Bobby, a vaccination that has like 38 different vaccines, and it looks like it's meant for a horse, not a 10-pound or 20-pound baby. It looks like you should be giving a horse this thing. And do you ever see the size of it, right? It's this massive. And then you see the baby all of a sudden starting to change radically. I've seen it too many times. And then you hear that it doesn't have an impact, right? But you and I talked about that a long time ago. And anyway, I would love you to do so. And I think it would be so good for you and so big for you. And we're going to win. We're going to win. We're way ahead of the guy. And, he's interesting. It was very nice, actually. He called me and he said, how did you choose to move to the right? So I guess that's, people say, if I was looking straight up, right? He said, I said, I was just showing a chart. I didn't have to tell him the chart was on all the people pouring into our country, right? But I just turned my head to show the chart. And something wrapped me. It felt like a giant, like the world's largest mosquito. And it was a bullet going right. What do they call that, an AR-15 or something? That was a big gun. That was a pretty tough gun.
A pretty tough gun. So the reasoning for posting this video, according to RFK III, was to show Donald Trump's true thoughts about vaccines. That he is a lot more anti-vax, or at least willing to lie about being anti-vax to get something out of it, than what he would publicly acknowledge.
The latter sounds more likely to me, that he just straight up would lie to say whatever he can to make somebody in front of him happy.
Right. He is a very, 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 very well-documented liar with a long history of constantly lying. But he did ask a favor of some sort. I would love you to do something, and I think it would be so good for you and so big for you, and we're going to win. I think it does expose Donald Trump, at least as someone sympathetic to anti-vax positions, as long as he gets something out of it. And I also think it exposes RFK Jr.'s campaign as
what it is.
Yeah, as less of a third-party candidate and more of, just a scumbag willing to work with the Trump campaign. And it makes sense. They both have sexually assaulted numerous women, so they have a lot in common.
Truly the peak of American manlyhood.
Yeah.
God, what losers. And speaking of losers, let's talk about the Democrats. Gotcha with the segue. Tensions have been rising, and more Dems have been calling for Joe Biden to step aside. Over the last week, the DNC...
Mark Pocan of Wisconsin.
Yep.
One of the latest. Now, I think 10%.
Yep.
Of the overall Democratic caucus in the House and Senate. Good times.
Oh, yeah. Over the last week, the DNC tried moving forward with their plan to have an early virtual call of the delegates to nominate Joe Biden. That didn't go so well. There was massive backlash all over by Democrats, both outside progressives like us, as well as internal progressives like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who urged the DNC to push it back, and so we could figure this whole thing out.
Stretching the definition of progressive there, but okay.
I was kind of thinking like we're the progressive, but then they're like the mainstream.
Yeah.
It's fine. You got it, all right? We're the outsiders. They're the insiders.
And the funny thing is the actual progressives, like AOC and Bernie Sanders,
are still vouching for Biden.
Yeah, are standing.
AOC just had another live stream where she tried to lay it all on the table and still wants Biden to be the nominee.
Right. Her concern is that all of these calls for him to step aside aren't coming from constituents. They're coming from the donor class. But no, how about both?
It can be, yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. And let's be real here. Talk to any Democratic voter. Odds are you're probably going to find someone who just doesn't like Joe Biden, because no one likes Joe Biden. And I'm sorry, we did this back in 2020 where fine, I'll vote for Joe Biden.
Right. I have a Settle for Biden 2020 t-shirt.
Right. Like, that's the whole point. And guess what? He was great for that year, and he's not anymore. And we're going to talk about why. Oh,
it's because he's too old.
yeah, he's too old.
And can't string together a coherent sentence. Did you see the Ed Gordon interview?
No, I
didn't. I mean, parts of it were fine, but man, did he have some stumbles.
Oh, boy.
He couldn't remember his own Secretary of Defense.
Great.
And he just was like, the black man.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So not his best.
But like we said before, more Democrats have been coming out publicly against Joe Biden. Mark Pocan, like you just said, was one of the latest ones. California Representative Adam Schiff did an interview with the Los Angeles Times where he had serious concerns about Biden winning and said that it was time for him to, quote, pass the torch. And this all comes from other news saying that, yeah, shocker, people don't like Joe Biden and people want an alternative. A new poll from Blue Labs Analytics, which is a Dem-leaning pollster, found that alternative candidates are running about 3 points ahead of Biden in swing states. Those come from winning over undecided voters and people considering to vote third party. I'll include the poll below.
And those are people that are not campaigning.
Correct. This also pairs with recently released polling that shows that 70% of voters, including 65% of Democrats, want Joe Biden to step aside. Now, Jason, I don't know if you saw, but I got asked to spare my thoughts to some of our friends online. And I kind of talked about why I've been pushed into the replace Joe Biden camp. And we have a record of trajectory of me where we disagreed.
Right.
And I've been pushed as more and more information came out. So I can fully admit I was conflicted. Here's the big deal. I'm not even concerned right now about him doing the job. I'm more concerned as a Democrat, can he win? And the answer to that is no. One of the best predictors that political science research has shown is, I'm not kidding, polling averages right before the conventions. And guess what? The Real Clear Politics polling average right now is plus 3 points for Donald Trump nationwide. In the swing states, it's even higher, except for Michigan, which is a plus 1.7. I think Wisconsin was like a plus 3.5 or a 4. Pennsylvania was like a plus 6 for Trump.
Yeah, and if he loses any of those states, it's
game over.
Done. Yeah.
So that's not good. And guess what time it is? It's convention time. And we talked about this last time as well, Jason. I do not think there is a single thing that Joe Biden can do to help his numbers in this case anymore. The image of Joe Biden is set. The identity of him is set. He is known now as a doddering old man who is potentially unfit for the job. That is it. Even among Democrats who try to keep saying, well, we're going to leave it up to Joe Biden. We're just going to leave it up to Joe Biden. They're not satisfied with him because he's already said he wants to run and they don't care. And they still want him gone. There's not a single thing he can do until the election to prove that he will be fit for the job anymore. The trust is lost and we need to go somewhere else. And it doesn't help that also late last week, Biden announced he had COVID. It's just one thing, Jason, after another.
So he's been isolating in his home in Delaware. Exactly what we needed right now is for him to not appear in public and not try to assuage any of the fears that we've been talking about. Good job. Not that he can control whether or not he gets COVID, but still, it's...
So, and I will say this because there is a chance, I mean, this has been moving very quickly.
Yeah.
By the time you hear this...
Hopefully.
He may have already dropped out. Rumors have been showing that he may drop out as early as, well, today or tomorrow, or maybe early next week.
The thoughts were that he was waiting until after the RNC so that they could not use that headline as some sort of gotcha or rally during the RNC.
Right.
Celebrate.
Right. Good job. Whatever.
Yeah, it has to come now.
Yes,
and that was one of the other issues that AOC brought up in her video, is that early ballots are going to start coming out in September.
Yep. Clock's ticking. We got to go.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things she was like, well, it's got to be Joe Biden because it's too late. It's like, well, it will be too late if it's Joe Biden, honestly. I don't have to agree with everything that other progressives say, for sure. And if that's her opinion, I can respect that. I do, though, feel like it's being informed by progressives are the outsiders in the Democratic Party. So if I toe the party line on this, when my opinion, like if she were to say Joe Biden should drop out. No one's going to listen anyway.
Right.
That she might be trying to gain some more mainstream credibility and credit within the mainstream of the Democratic Party by taking this stance, when it really doesn't matter if she were to take the opposite stance. But it's not usually, you don't want to have to disagree with the people that you normally agree with 90% of the time.
Well, and on top of that, I think we should not look over how huge this is, that you have mainstream establishment Democrats, legislators, who are like nearly sworn.
Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, they are nearly sworn to whoever the leader is, right? Like, yes, we are not the Republican Party, I understand, but guess what? Politics is still politics, and you support the head honcho and you don't speak out against it. That's how politics in this day and age still works. And that you have these mainstream establishment candidates who've been working their entire careers supporting people on top of the ticket, coming out not only for a challenging candidate that they have issues with, but the current president of the United States should alarm the heck out of you. Because if they see something in the wind to make them do something that they would have never done in their entire careers, that's how bad it's gone. We now officially had the two most important people make their choices vocally, and that is John Tester and Sherrod Brown, the two most vulnerable Senate Democrats coming up in 2024. And they both have come out firmly against Joe Biden and have asked him to step down.
Right, and that means that they feel it's more politically advantageous.
Yes.
For them to take that position.
Well, because what are they going to do? Joe Biden comes to Ohio and Sherrod Brown's going to avoid him like the plague? He needs to go. I get that it's scary. I understand that, and I 100% understand that.
You were on that side.
Yes, I know. And it's still there. That fear is very rational, and it's still there. It really is. But the data isn't there. And if there was data there, I would freaking use it, because when in doubt, you go with what you know. And the idea of doing an open convention and asking the current president of the United States to not run for another term after he's already won the primary is insane to me. That is a crazy idea.
Yeah, and I don't advocate an open convention. I think we just make it Kamala Harris.
Well, yes, but from what reporting comes out to
is going to be worse.
Well, yes, but I actually don't think so too much. But I think a lot of the reporting is showing that it's going to be technically an open convention, but I think a lot of the delegates are just going to go to Kamala anyway. And that's to try to show that Kamala can win the convention as opposed to just being hand selected by a few elites. Fine, whatever. Either way, I get the fears. I totally get the fears. Joe Biden is poised to lose this election, and he is not doing anything to make it better. And he can't do anything to make it better, like I said before. So at this point, F it. Hail Mary. Let's go. I don't know what else we can do.
It's too important.
It's too important to just not do anything. We just sit in our hands and pretend that this problem doesn't exist. And then we look back on it in December when Trump wins, like, well, there was nothing we could do. No, there was. And if we still lose in December after replacing Joe Biden with maybe Kamala Harris or somebody else, we can at least say, well, you know what? We did what we thought we could. Mm-hmm. And we at least tried. And we lost trying, which is what I want to do as a Democrat.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
Once again, we are going to skip Foxed in the Head this week.
Because we've got plenty.
We're almost at an hour recording just the headlines. So we'll move to our main segment this week, the RNC, the Republican National Convention in our own hometown of Milwaukee.
And Jason.
Ooh. I heard no one visited the Bronze Funds. Disgraceful.
That is actually pretty bad. But Jason, I've got one question for you.
So all you criminals, all you lowlifes, all you scumbags, all you drug dealers, and all you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother. What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
We truly are
bam, bam, bam,
living
bam, 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 bam.
in idiocracy.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man because it's not women. I am a... Okay.
The Republican...
That was his theme song, by the way, if anyone didn't know.
Yeah, the Republican National Convention really, truly was a extremely long documentary-style remake of Idiocracy.
It really was. And I think what I hated the most about it is I wasn't surprised or shocked by any of it. It was actually very boring for me. I don't know about your experience.
Oh, I did not watch a lot of it. I will not apologize for that. And almost all of what I'm going to be saying,
I didn't
is
watch any of
based
it
on
live.
clips.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of it live, so for there's that. But it was just very boring. It's the same stuff over and over again. We'll talk about that throughout this segment. But so before we jump into the RNC and what actually like some of the clips, we're not going to talk about things really in chronological order necessarily. We're just going to kind of spitball and go all over the place.
Highlights.
Yeah, but the first thing I want to talk about is the Republicans' goal from going into this thing. A lot of Republicans called that this needed to be about unity for this convention, something that Republicans haven't done in a very long time, but it's going to be based on unity. It's not going to be about how Democrats are evil or about how we need to imprison people that we don't like. It's going to be about unity.
The things that people say they don't like about Donald Trump, or at least the non-MAGA voters don't like about Donald Trump.
Right.
They're basically running the Joe Biden 2020 campaign.
Exactly. But of course, you know, they went back on it so hard on night one. Ron Johnson, our beloved senator from Wisconsin,
And at least in the top two stupidest senators in the nation, Tommy Tuberville, that son of a gun, I think he took the mantle away. Need to make Wisconsin great again.
But boy, is our friend Ron trying really hard for that number one spot. He was one of the Republicans who went on air before the convention and called for unity, just to speak at night one, where he talked about illegal immigration and how that was a threat to our democracy because Democrats are bringing them over, how Democratic policies are a literal and present threat and danger to everyday society, and they need to be eliminated. And when asked about his speech, he blamed the teleprompter for playing the wrong version of the speech, and literally said, "Oh no, we meant to have it be my unity speech, but my staffer didn't put it on the teleprompter."
He's got the worst staff. They constantly try to get him in trouble. They try to get him involved in the election, the fake electors scheme. They just, man, they're not helping out.
I don't understand how, this is where I do give tons of credit to journalists, because I don't understand how you can see Ron Johnson across the table from you actually tell you they put the wrong speech on the teleprompter and they gave him the division speech as opposed to the unity speech.
Someone switched this teleprompter to evil.
And they don't just bust out laughing. I couldn't do that, Jason. I couldn't do it. But at the same time, I do want a journalist just to go, "What?"
Or bullshit.
Yeah, just one time. I need somebody to break. Can we just have one journalist just break and be a human? But all right. So no unity speech. Fine.
So what is the one thing everyone was looking forward to from the Republican National Convention? Who would be Donald Trump's running mate?
And they were all there. Doug Burgum was there. Tim Scott was there. Marco Rubio was there, all sitting in Trump's box.
Nikki Haley?
She gave a strong endorsement for Donald Trump, though.
Right. She did kiss the ring. Something that she
did.
said she wouldn't do.
No! Donald Trump picked J.D. Vance to be his vice president.
First term senator out of Ohio, only 39 years old, one of the youngest vice presidential candidates ever.
Barely won his seat in Ohio, even though Ohio's been trending red for the last decade now.
He portrays himself as a working class man of the people and frequently uses the trappings of left-wing populism, but his backstory is he went to Yale after getting his law degree. Instead of using it to help his underserved community, he instead went to work as a corporate lawyer defending the very exploiters of that community.
Yeah.
He then moved to Silicon Valley to become a venture capitalist, working for Peter Thiel, who then funded his political career.
Yeah.
So just a standard Republican scumbag. Like, he is the blueprint of, like, the libertarian.
Oh, 100%.
In America. Like,
you hate the correct people? I'll give you
tons
tons of money. That's what it is.
Right. And he tries to be I'm from Appalachia, blah, 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 Hillbilly Elegy. He was the author of that. I haven't read it. I haven't seen the Netflix
I haven't either.
movie directed by Ron Howard, starring Glenn Close and Amy Adams. Even with all that, no one watched that movie. Even in that, and I haven't read it, but according to people who have, he basically just shows a disdain towards that community, his own family, that they're just gross white trash who cause their own problems. And, if they just pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, stop getting drunk and being violent hicks, that that would solve all their problems. That, you know, there's no such thing as any kind of problems that government could help solve, like infrastructure or labor laws, things like that. No, it's personal moral failings.
Yep.
That is not a populist message. That is a conservative message. And all it does is serve capital, which is what J.D. Vance has done his entire life. That's who he is. He is not a man of the people. He is a man of capital.
And so, I don't know if you watched J.D. Vance's speech, but...
Nope.
It was just a weird speech, just all over the place. He tries talking about himself. He tries talking about random Republican values and stuff like that. He talks about his Meemaw a lot. I have a clip about how much he loved his Meemaw and all the guns she had. And that's the defining feature of this woman.
And while we're on the topic of grandparents, let me tell you another Meemaw story. Now, my Meemaw died shortly before I left for Iraq in 2005. And when we went through her things, we found 19 loaded handguns. They were stashed all over her house, under her bed, in her closet, in the silverware drawer. This frail old woman made sure that no matter where she was within arm's length of whatever she needed to protect her family. That's who we fight for. That's American spirit.
Yes, Jason, that's American spirit for you. Having 19 loaded handguns.
Days after their candidate for president barely survived an assassination attempt. Like, that's who we need to defend. People that have guns
in their kitchen drawers.
Reach at all times. Yeah!
Oh my God.
So being Trump's running mate, the loyalty that Trump demands from everyone around him, and in that speech, certainly J.D. Vance painted himself as a Trump superfan. MAGA all the way. But he has a long history, very recently, of saying a lot of negative things about Donald Trump. The one thing that we've all heard, I think, a lot, in a private message to a friend, Vance wrote about Trump that he goes back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical a-hole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful. A useful idiot, or that he's America's Hitler, something that J.D. Vance himself criticized Democrats for comparing Trump to Hitler, saying that that's what led to the assassination attempt, himself comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. But that's not all. That is just the tip of that iceberg. I have an article from Vanity Fair, which I will link. You're probably going to be paywalled, but you might be able to find a way around that, of the long history.
A villain and a douche.
Yes, in February 2016, Vance liked a tweet featuring a photo of Trump and O.J. Simpson that read, "Here's an old picture of one of USA's most hated, villainous, douchey celebs." Also in picture, O.J. Simpson. In an April 2016 op-ed for the New York Times, Vance wrote, "Mr. Trump is unfit for our nation's highest office." Something Nikki Haley also said about Donald Trump.
Yep.
During a 2016 interview, Kentucky radio host Matt Jones told Vance, "I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people." Vance responded, "I do too. I don't think he actually cares about folks." Speaking to NPR's Terry Gross in August 2016, Vance said, "I think I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. I'm a never Trumper guy. I never liked him," Vance told Charlie Rose in October 2016. Also in October 2016, J.D. Vance wrote on Twitter, "Trump makes people I care about afraid. Immigrants, Muslims, etc. Because of this, I find him reprehensible. God wants better of us."
Oh, you're worried about immigrants, are you?
Right, about
JD.
immigrants being afraid. And now he's all on board with the let's close the borders, let's deport every immigrant. That rhetoric has certainly not changed. It's not anything that Trump is doing differently. My God, what an idiot, Vance wrote on Twitter in reference to Trump. 2017, he sent a message to a friend from law school discussing his opposition to the America Health Care Act, Republican legislation that Republicans wanted to replace Obamacare. "Can you imagine running as an anti-AHCA populace who think Trump is a moral disaster? Where's my constituency?" And there it is, him coming to the realization that his positions that he actually holds were not going to lead to him winning political power.
Yep.
And that's exactly why he changed his positions. We're not done yet, though. After the grab them by the pussy Access Hollywood tape came out, Vance liked a tweet that read, maybe the Central Park Five could take out a full-page ad to condemn the coddling of thug real estate barons who commit serial sexual assault. Because Trump, obviously well known for taking out a full-page ad to condemn the thug Central Park Five, who were later acquitted. In 2016, he was asked about an accusation from Jessica Leeds, who said Trump groped her. Vance replied, this is sort of he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on the tape?
Cool.
Yeah. So
that's the guy who's literally sucking up to Trump right now.
Right. And his biggest fan and his running mate. Oh, but that's all the media. The media is spinning it all. He never said any of that. That's not what he meant. He didn't know Donald Trump then.
Whatever.
Absolutely ridiculous. One of the other big issues, abortion, which they tried so hard not to talk about.
Yeah. If you want
during that entire convention.
If you want to talk about a general theme for the convention, it was, we are not going to talk about abortion. And we even talked about that in our last episode.
Right.
With the GOP platform, where they intentionally took out pro-life stuff.
And they made Mrs. Howell very angry in doing so. What are J.D. Vance's history with abortion? Well, he is a hardline anti-abortion with no exceptions position. That's who he is. He, again, has a very recent history of expressing those thoughts. In 2022, 2 years ago, Vance was asked whether anti-abortion laws should include rape and incest exceptions. His response was, 2 wrongs don't make a right. At the end of the day, we're talking about an unborn baby. What kind of society do we want to have? A society that looks at unborn babies as inconveniences to be discarded?
No, just the women, apparently.
Yeah, just your life. You should be forced to raise your rapist's baby, or even a baby that you don't want. When asked again about the exceptions, Vance said, the question portrays a certain presumption that is wrong. It is not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term, it's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society. Society's not going to help you raise your rape baby.
Well, again, like, just look at how he twists that and tries to reframe that as like, oh no, let's stop talking about the mother.
Right. It's not about her or her bodily autonomy. It's about the child, the clump of cells, and
God, it's disgusting.
The morality of society. And what kind of society do we want to be? Well, not a society that forces you to give birth.
Right, and do not let Republicans and conservatives spin that any other way. It is 100% you are forcing a woman to give birth.
Yes, and that's J.D. Vance's position, the running mate of Donald Trump, and it is really the majority of the Republican Party's position, even though they're now too scared to admit it.
And so there was one surprise that I had for the convention. I was not expecting to see Teamsters president Sean O'Brien speak. For those of you who don't know who Sean O'Brien is, he's the guy that went viral months ago, half a year ago, something like that.
We had the clip in our show at the time.
Yeah, where he basically challenged Oklahoma Senator Meemaw Hutton or whatever it was, Conway Twitty, whatever his name was, I don't even remember, to a literal fight during a Senate hearing. Keep in mind that Teamsters and union supports usually support Democrats because guess what party supports unions? Democrats. However, Sean O'Brien said during his speech that organized labor is nonpartisan. Fine, whatever. But then continued and said that Trump surrounds himself with people who often have critical voices.
Which couldn't be further.
It is a straight up lie. He also said that he's doing the right thing if extremists on both sides get mad at him and called Trump a tough SOB.
Yeah, to me, this was a disgusting betrayal of the most pro-union president in a generation. Say what you want about Joe Biden, and we have, and we will continue to do so. He is extremely pro-union and has done more for unions in this country than any president in my lifetime.
Jason, you want to be even angrier? I believe it was the next day, Sean O'Brien went on CNN and said Joe Biden is by far the most pro-union president America's ever had. Then what are you doing at the RNC?
Right.
Look, I get it. I understand. Yes, unions can be nonpartisan. I also understand you have conservatives and Republicans who are still union members, and that's becoming a major problem. And you don't want to seem beholden to one political party. I understand that. But literally lying and giving credence and permission to the Republican Party, who you know has been trying to defund you and your organization and screw workers over the past, what,
Yeah, it's
50
not-
years?
It's not that you have two parties that are kind of have similar stances.
No, you have literally the most pro-union side ever in history and the most anti-union side ever in history.
And yeah, he did talk a lot about some anti-capitalism, like in his speech.
Yeah, he took on big miss in his speech as well.
But the audience wasn't listening to what he had to say. He's only there to deliver Teamster votes to Trump. The same person who visited a non-union auto parts factory in Michigan the day after Joe Biden made headlines by being the first sitting president ever to walk a picket line.
And literally got volunteers who had no clue what they were actually doing there to pretend that they were union members. Like, it is a complete fraud what Trump did. And it's a fraud to say that the Republican Party is anything pro-union.
And O'Brien sucked up to senators like J.D. Vance and specifically Josh Hawley, who he had glowing words for during his speech, and then the next day endorsed an article that Hawley wrote about the labor movement. And the Teamsters' own Twitter account had some very harsh words for O'Brien's endorsement of that article.
I'll let you read it.
They posted a quote from the article written by Josh Hawley. The C-suite is using the profits to push diversity, equity, and inclusion and the religion of the trans flag. So anti-trans rhetoric trying to say that, oh, companies are just using their profits instead of giving them to the workers.
To be woke.
They're being woke. Sean O'Brien's response was, Senator Hawley is 100% on point, which is, again, disgusting. The Teamsters Twitter account responded, unions gain nothing from endorsing the racist, misogynistic, and anti-trans politics of the far right. No matter how much people like Senator Hawley attempt to tether such bigotry to a cynical pro-labor message, the message this sends to Teamsters of color, Teamster women, and LGBTQ Teamsters is that they are not welcome in the union unless they surrender their identity to a new kind of anti-woke unionism. You don't unite a diverse working class by scoffing at its diversity.
And guess what, Jason? You and I both know a transgender Teamster. Back from early on when we had Jessica Katzenmeier on the show, who ran for state senate, she is a transgender woman, and she has been a Teamster union member for over a decade.
And unfortunately, that tweet was deleted, but I think it does show that there is a disconnect with Sean O'Brien and at least a section of the union that he is supposed to represent. And yes, I was extremely disappointed by his speech at the RNC. I get it that, oh, well, he thinks that Trump's going to win, so he's trying to position himself to at least get something out of it, but
they don't want you. That's the point.
And they just want your votes. That's why you're there. They just want votes from Teamsters, and you don't have to do that.
This is 100%. I mean, I know this analogy is so overused at this point, but this is literally the leopards eat your face off party thing. Like
when they crush unions in America, when they have full control of the president, House, and Senate, and SCOTUS, as we well know, it'll be like, oh, what happened? I thought I was on your side now.
Right. And again, we can give some credence to O'Brien if the Biden administration and Democrats were just selling out unions left and right and just pretending to like unions, but not actually doing anything about it. But that's not what's happening. Again, O'Brien sold out a party that has not been more beholden to the unions, even against our own interests, Jason. The reason why Democrats aren't even pushing for Medicare for all and universal health care is because of unions. And the fact that Sean O'Brien takes all that power and then gives it to Republicans is the wildest thing to me. And it's so angering that when we are trying so hard just to keep everything held together against, for some reason, Trump's dominant victory campaign right now, we have idiots like Sean O'Brien giving him more ammunition.
Luckily, we still do have people like the United Auto Workers Union president, Sean Fain, who are not blinded by the potential of working with a Trump administration and are holding firm. And while they did, I think, smartly withhold their endorsement for Joe Biden, they didn't immediately give it to him. They wanted to see what his policies were, what he was promising.
You still have to earn it.
But they have endorsed Joe Biden, whereas the Teamsters will probably not endorse a candidate in this election because they want to do this. Well, we think Trump's going to win. So.
Both sides BS. It drives me nuts.
When you're not going to get anything from Republicans as a union, they hate you. As you heard at the top of the main segment, WWF superstar Hulk Hogan.
Brother!
Was at the RNC giving a speech. We have another clip from that.
This is probably the viral moment of his speech.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero? And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
And while he was doing that,
he was tearing his shirt,
doing the Hulk Hogan tear his shirt bit
to show a Trump Vance T-shirt underneath. Brother.
So they do have a lot in common. Terry Bollea, which is his real name. He's a Florida man, much like Donald Trump is now. They're both the fakest tough guys you will ever see in your life.
Yep.
Sorry if I just burst your wrestling is real bubble. They are both connected to Peter Thiel as well. Hulk Hogan had a sex tape having sex with his friend's wife while saying that he did not want his daughter to date any N-words, which he said multiple times. That was released by Gawker. Peter Thiel funded Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker for releasing that tape, which ended up putting Gawker out of business. So there are a lot of connections. And I kind of understand. And look, I know that Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, is a terrible person. I've known that for a long time now.
Yeah.
He lies just about as much as Donald Trump. Everything the guy ever says about his career, most of it is demonstrably false. And like, there's video evidence of like everything he says is wrong. He claims that he was going to be the bassist for Metallica, which they say no. He just is a constant liar. He's had everything in his life, but he will stop you from making $1 if he thinks it's going to cost him a dime. He's a terrible person by everyone's account.
Yes, I agree.
This still killed any pleasant memories I had left from my childhood from about the ages of like 4 to 10, while my brain was still mostly mush. I was a WWF fan, and Hulk Hogan obviously
was the star.
Right. So even though I know the real person sucks, this was still hard to listen.
I'm going to be honest, that was way sadder than I expected. And I was just going to laugh at Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. The Fu Manchu.
I was very similar though. Like I loved Hulk Hogan when I was a little kid. I was a little bit after his time, but I still kind of grew up very young in like the NWO and
the Hollywood Hogan.
All that stuff,
shoe polish beard.
So it's just like, it just sucks.
Yeah. I mean, like Kid Rock, we all got that.
Oh man, did you see any of that?
Dana White, did you see as well?
Well, I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, well,
what shocker?
Wife beater, Dana White.
Another is gonna support another. Wow. Did you see any of Kid Rock's performance?
No.
Purposefully,
I did
where he literally asked everybody to put their fists in the air, and you have a bunch of like 7-year-olds like, okay, are we doing the white power thing? I don't know what we're doing. And then he just starts going, all right, everybody together, fight. And then you just have all these awkward Republicans going, yeah, fight. It is the funniest thing. You absolutely should watch it on your own time because it's so hilarious.
No, he sings, right? I'm not watching that.
Not that part, at least. But finally,
let's get to the main event.
The main event that we're going to talk probably the least about. Donald Trump delivered the longest convention speech of all time.
He has the top 3 longest convention speeches.
He does.
2020 was the longest until now. Before that, it was 2016, and now it's 2024.
The dude spoke for 93 minutes. He has attained feature length. When we are in hell, in about 30 years, they're going to release that in theaters as a feature-length film. Just in its entirety, and then it's going to win an Oscar.
I tried to watch it. I tried. And he started off with like, oh, I'll talk about the assassination attempt. That's what everyone wants to talk
in
about.
a lot of detail.
Yeah, like
it was a warm, sunny day.
Like he was J.R.R. Tolkien writing a book about it. Like, oh my God.
Shut up about the tree already.
The history of this tree. I'm like, oh my God, he made this somehow boring. How did he make this so boring?
Yep.
And I didn't even get through it. I couldn't. I got like a couple minutes into that.
It was
and I'm
bad.
like, I can't. This is dumb.
And the rest of it was just him rambling, just going off random tangents. It was literally a typical Trump rally speech that we are grown to love.
But it was more, he was like really down. He wasn't his normal, like he's usually pretty high energy, upbeat, you know, playing to the crowd. The crowd was there to see him. That's usually his thing. But he was like really reserved, really down, really like, I'd even heard people speculating that he might have been on painkillers.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Having your ear shot probably hurts.
I guess. I don't know. If you look at that bandage.
So, okay, let's talk about the band. We have to talk about the bandage now.
Yeah. It's huge. It looks like he got it from Mike Lindell because it looks like a pillow.
It looks like a tiny pillow. But the crazier part about all this is that you saw pictures of attendees bandaging their own ears in solidarity.
Right. When I first saw it, and this is the truth. I first saw a picture of somebody with their ear bandaged, and they had like a notebook and a pencil, so I figured it was like a reporter.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really in bad taste. This is a reporter that is mocking Trump. Like, Jesus, I wouldn't even go that far. That's a bit much. And the guy, you know, got shot in the ear. Like, come on. But no, these were Trump fans.
Yep.
Doing it like, yeah, we're all with you. We all have a bandage on our ear. It's ridiculous.
I mean, hell, man, they already wear a torture device around their neck. Did you see the whole, like, messianic leader thing he was doing?
I don't believe so.
So he goes, well, I wasn't supposed to be here today. And everyone's like, no. He's like, yep, I wasn't supposed to be here today.
I was supposed to be here today. He's quoting Clark, I see.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I wasn't going to make it. And then the entire crowd starts chanting, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Say, but God had another plan for me. And only by the grace of God that I am here today. And
why couldn't that guy have just taken an extra second to line up that shot?
And again, when I saw that clip, sorry we don't have the one here, we have others, it's fine, deal with it. When I saw that clip, it reminded me, I'm gonna go back to the boys again. There are parts where like Homelander is like getting people all riled up, and then he just says the craziest things like about religion and God and prophecy and whatnot, just to get them riled up even more. And you know, when you're watching the show, you can tell he's like BSing.
Yeah, it's very cynical.
Like that's exactly how I saw. I'm like, oh my God, like this is straight up like the boys with Homelander.
Trump has led a very public life. He has never been religious.
No.
Until he got into politics. And he panders so hard to the religious, and it's so obviously fake, but they don't care. I mean, you know, the religion is so obviously fake anyway, so I guess you're already buying into BS either way.
So, like I said, the whole thing was just a meandering mess. He did end with this. We do have one clip from his speech.
In Wisconsin, we are spending over $250 million here creating jobs and other economic development all over the place. So I hope you will remember this in November and give us your vote. I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that.
Well, one, I think we all remember Foxconn. Which was Trump's plan for economic development in Wisconsin, which
that worked
failed
out so well.
Spectacularly and cost the state, and particularly the village of Pleasant Prairie, millions and millions of dollars, and got absolutely nothing out of it. So if that's what he's talking about, I don't think that worked very well.
So
otherwise, I don't know how he can be actively developing anything, seeing as how he's not currently president. Maybe he forgot. But yeah, the whole speech, we normally would have a bunch of stuff from a Trump speech. It was so boring. There's nothing to
There's just nothing there. It was just a meandering mess. And I think this is probably a good time to talk about this as well. Democrats, myself included, were very relieved when they heard that speech and have it go on for 90 minutes and have everybody's eyes glaze over and fall asleep and constantly checking their watches. This guy is so goddamn beatable that it makes me angry, Jason, that we're losing. I don't know how we're losing to this guy. I am flabbergasted how we are losing so badly to this guy. Because, like you said, the guy just had an assassination attempt on his life, and he made it the most boring story
Yes.
of all time. The guy gets free reign as the nominee of the convention on all the major news networks to say whatever the hell he wants. And he turns it into a 93-minute mess. It was awful.
Mm-hmm.
He is such a bad candidate, and we are losing to him.
That is correct.
Oh, I have a list of some other random observations I made.
Despite the talk of unity, we have a clip of Matt Gaetz heckling Kevin McCarthy while he is trying to give an interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins. The Republican Party is 100% united. It's the Democratic Party that can't even decide who their candidate is. Let's listen to what Republican unity sounds like.
One who's not coming back, and then the other part that you have, and the other part you have is one person who raised the issue. He's got an ethics complaint about sleeping with a 17-year-old. So that's the way they would go. So that's the biggest challenge we have.
Kevin McCarthy correctly saying that there is an open ethics complaint against Matt Gaetz for paying for and sleeping with a 17-year-old minor. And Matt Gaetz saying, well, if you took the stage, you'd get booed off of it. Unity within the Republican Party.
Oh, I love that they just legit hate each other. That makes me so happy. Keep going, you two. This needs to be its own little sitcom. That's what I want.
Also, something that was funny before the convention, Rudy Giuliani failed an unprompted sobriety test.
He fell for a bunch of chairs.
When he was walking past rows of empty folding chairs, he appeared to be reaching down for something.
I don't know what he was doing.
And then just fell into the chairs and down to the floor.
Oh, Don Jr.'s daughter spoke and talked about how great her grandfather was and how he's just like everybody else and he cares so much. They also brought the UNC frat boys, which I don't know if you guys remember this, but these were the bunch of really conservative jerks who just felt so patriotic that they had to stand and raise the American flag while radical leftists tried to replace him with a Palestinian one.
During the Gaza protests, yeah. They also played the video of college students from Mississippi who were heckling a black woman saying that, oh, look, this proves that not all colleges are woke these days, while those college students were literally jumping up and down and making monkey noises at the black woman. It's the Republican Party, everybody.
Yep. And of course, they talked about golf a lot. A lot. Tucker Carlson, who also spoke at the event for some reason.
That's the only time anyone's going to hear him speak.
Right.
These days.
He opened for Trump's PGA professional from one of his private golf clubs. And the guy talked about Trump's golf game a lot. And it's going to sound very North Korean-esque. Let's take a listen.
One hell of a golfer. At our club championship in March, I watched President Trump hit a perfect 210-yard 4-iron to within 10 feet of the hole. Yep. He needed to sink that putt to win. Do you think he sank it? You better believe you sunk that putt. Donald Trump, 21 club championships. Joe Biden, 0.
How do you take these people seriously?
I heard Kim Jong-un hole-in-one every time.
Yeah, he did. Oh, Trump is so defensive about his golf game that he's literally leasing out space at the RNC for his presidential campaign to talk about how good at golf he is. And
who cares?
And for the record, this was not the only person to talk about golf. His granddaughter talked about golf. Multiple other speakers talked about golf and how good Trump was at golf. It's so weird. But anyway, overall thoughts.
So you said the goal of the convention was to promote unity.
No, I said their goal for the convention was to create unity. Did they reach it?
I don't think it matters. to the people that the convention is for, which is your base. It's not for undecided or like non-political voters.
Right. Again, this was another base convention, and this was a Trump ego stroking fest.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you even saw like when Trump came out, like he came out with like the huge like name up in lights behind him.
They had the uniform of the firefighter that was killed at the Trump rally.
Yep.
Which Trump hugged and kissed.
Yep. I mean, the good news is, as crazy as this whole thing was, it's not going to do anything. And while they were definitely more on message, we did not hear anything about abortion, like we talked about earlier. We did not really hear anything about election denial until Donald Trump got up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were trying really hard to stay on message. And they even took a couple shots at Kamala Harris because...
Right, because they're worried.
They're worried.
Yeah.
I just don't see this doing anything. Granted, I don't see the DNC doing anything either, but it's just like, this was just a very boring, dull convention for them. And I say... And that sounds crazy to me because what they said was insane.
Right. Well, the whole thing, to me, the Republican Party, or at least this election, their message is just immigrants are killing our country. That's all it is. It's all anti-immigrants. And obviously when I say immigrants, I specifically mean people from Mexico and Central and South America.
The non-white ones.
Right. Anyone coming here from Mexico, Central, South America, looking to get a job, looking to be safe from the drug cartel violence, looking for a better life, a place to raise their family. They are killing America. They are poisoning the country with fentanyl. They are stealing all of the specifically black and brown jobs, which again, Peter Navarro, fresh out of jail, came to speak at the Republican convention and reiterated that point from Trump's earlier speech. Only black and brown jobs. Those are the bad ones. Those are for black and brown people. The immigrants are stealing those. Those aren't for white Americans. We get the good jobs. They're not stealing our jobs. We're too skilled and important for immigrants to steal our jobs. They are raping and murdering people. You should be very afraid. And the only thing that's going to save you from having your job stolen, from overdosing on fentanyl, from being raped and murdered by an immigrant coming from Mexico, Central and South America, is by electing Donald Trump and having him deport every single undocumented immigrant in the country and close our southern border. That is the message of the Republican National Convention. It's the message of the Republican Party. If that's what you agree with, if you think all of the problems in your life and in our country are because we're allowing immigrants, then that's your choice. That's who you should be voting for. If you don't feel like that's the case, and maybe you think that we're a nation of immigrants, none of us are natives, if you're from European descent, that our grandparents, great-grandparents came over and were looking for the exact same things, to be safe, to raise a family, to have a future, and they're human beings, not animals, to be caged and shipped back, then I think the Republican Party is not where you should be putting any of your faith or your trust. It's a party of fear. It's a party of hate. It's a party of racism. And that's the only message I got out of this. It's literally when Donald Trump was shot at, it was what he was talking about. What he continued to talk about during this speech, what J.D. Vance has talked about, what every one of these people that talked, everybody mentioned immigration. It's been their number one policy. It's been their number one focus. It's just demonizing an ethnic group for political gain. And unfortunately, it's working. Why are we losing to one of the worst candidates in history? Fear and hatred and xenophobia. So I don't know. That was their goal. Did they reach it? I couldn't say. It's not going to convince me.
Well, but I don't think a goal matters at this point. It's just they don't need to have a direction because it's all emotionally based anyway. They don't need to have a real platform because it's all emotionally based anyway. Hell, like when we looked at their platform, most of their platform was stop the people we don't like from living their lives. That's it. This is what happens when you just have cult worship as your main ideology and hatred of people of color and Democrats as like your foundation. It's just bad. And I say this fully knowing that the DNC is going to be just as boring and just as probably as silly. And we'll cover that one too when it comes. But yeah, the good news is, like I said, this ain't going to do a damn thing. The bad news is we kind of needed to do a damn thing and make it a bad thing.
It might be too late.
Right.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
How was Pod Save America?
We were 2 rows back, and while they were discussing shit, my inner white boy podcaster was like, "Oh, get me on the stage. I gotta talk about the issues. I can say things on this stage. Come on."
My own opinion is way more important.
Yeah.
Even though all of these people came here to see someone else.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'm like, calm down, inner white boy. You're in the audience.
Shut up, privilege.